Now, when it comes to culinary justice, we're talking about how the right a people has to derive benefit, uplift, and meaning from their own cuisine. Not far away from food justice, where we're talking about the right to healthy, nutritious food that empowers and enables the individual to exist fluidly. So, culinary justice in the Ashkenazi Jewish culinary sense is about not erasing the presence of Ashkenazi Jews as creators. The soccer tort comes to mind in Austria, among other dishes. It's about also recognizing that when communities have sustained trauma, for example, during the Shoah, we have restaurants in Eastern Europe which play at being nostalgic for the Eastern European Jewish culture, but also sort of portray that culture in what can only be called Jew face. It's, the mocking of the folk culture, figurines right out of Fiddler on the Roof, menus that reflect the Jewish culinary heritage, but with no context. And it's that context, that seriousness, that nuance, that respect for the creators and their culture that really informs what we call culinary justice and gives honor to the thousands of years of Ashkenazi Jewish history that the world has been privileged to know. So when we're talking about Ashkenazi Jewish cuisine, we're talking about a diaspora that was created during the Roman Empire days. Many of the Jews of Rome came from the Eastern diaspora by force after the fall of the temple. Others were already there. The community moves across Europe out from Italy into Alsace-Lorraine, where Germany and France meet, and then deeper and deeper into Central and Eastern Europe, ultimately going into the Pale of Settlement in Russia. There were Jews in England, there were Jews in France, there were Jews in Central Germany, there were Jews in Scandinavia, but those communities constantly get pushed around, moved around, relocated based on the Crusades, based on other traumatic events, based on pogroms. And all of that has an effect on your food culture. All of that really determines it. But there's also another element, and I think it's really critical to talk about, is that Jewish culture and Ashkenazi Jewish food is not just a trauma-based, running away. It's also a making a home. One time I had the privilege of listening to an interview by a parent in one of the Hebrew schools that I taught at. The interview began with, "When I heard the first guns, I was in the forest picking mushrooms." And to anyone else, that's just whatever. But mushrooms, knowing mushrooms, means that you've been someplace a long time. You're familiar with the environment, the land, nature. That's a part of you as much as it's a part of your neighbors. And despite the fact that we've been sort of like trained or tuned into the idea that to be Jewish in Europe, to be Jewish in the diaspora, to be a guest, these people weren't guests. This was their home. And being in tune with the seasons and being in tune with the rhythms of nature as you found them wherever you were, whether it was Galicia or whether it was you were in the Litvak region or whether you were in Romania or Hungary, was really critical because this was about people making a home, but also the idea of hamishness in Jewish culture, the idea of seeking joy, hiddur mitzvah in Hebrew, to beautify the holidays to the best food, the best emotions behind the idea of presenting, our observance to God and to each other, really is a critical aspect. This is about being happy. There's a culture where joy could be few and far between, but when it was found, food was the predominant means and vehicle of its expression. And I think that's why people think Jewish food is comforting food, but especially Ashkenazi Jewish food, because it was meant to sustain people through hard times with happiness and with love and with joy, with simcha. And without that, we wouldn't have survived as a people.